This is the Wizard Wells here coming to you from Harrisburg North Middle School, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I got a subject worth talking about today. It's going to be not what you expect. So I have a disclosure to make. The disclosure that I have to make to you is that Friday is, when we play D&D, is very much the hardest day of my week, and the one that I look forward to the most, and the ones that the kid looks forward to the most. Kids. It's really very taxing to run D&D on Fridays. I run 3 groups, and it's rotated throughout the course of the day, so there's not actually any downtime for me at all on Fridays. And I just wanted to purvey that out and let everybody know that using D&D in your classroom is like a huge investment and is not just going to do it by itself. The last video I did, I think I explained this a little bit, but it is not an easy thing to do. So that brings us to our current subject, actually, which is testing. Testing to me is highly important. Coming from the guy who uses D&D in school and product-based learning and everything, you'd probably think that testing would be the last thing on my mind, but nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, testing is very much prevalent on my mind at all times. Because if the test scores do not go up, then the methodology that we've built in this room isn't working. And then something has to change. You have to go back to filling in lines and blanks and things like that, boxes, whatever. So testing is always really important to me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I do with the kids that's not about D&D at all, but has more to do with their actual academic success, where the internalization of what they've done with characters and playing and gameplay and product-based learning and things like that, how that resonates out into a test. But you have to actually make sure that they're ready. So, for the gaming guy who teaches kids how to play D&D in class, like I teach them testing strategies pretty frequently, a couple times a year, at least 4. For instance, just some things to think about as a teacher. They take these, my kids take these quarterly springboard tests, which is our canned curriculum. I like some of it, don't like a lot of it, but these quarterly tests I do appreciate because they're very reachable. Now, this is my copy. The first thing I'm going to tell you is these tests are incredibly hard, ridiculously so hard, actually. Harder than the standardized assessments that they'll take 3 times in a year, actually 4 times in a year. So this test is harder than that. And so I explain to them, like, when you're practicing something, you practice harder than you play so that you're ready to play. You practice every day, but you only have 1 game a week kind of thing. So what I do is I'll take this test with them when they're taking the test, every year. And it doesn't really seem to help that much with how many I get wrong. You notice that I got 4 wrong, and that makes it 13 out of 17. And this test is difficult. So I take it with them to assist in their resistance, right? Like I always say, I'm going to work when you're working. And so this is one example. And I'll get to a question that's difficult and just look at the ceiling and be like, what are they doing? Why are they asking me these kinds of questions? And so what I'll end up doing is whatever I get wrong as a trained English teacher of 43 years on Earth, I will make that score the 100%. So in this case, this test was a 13 would have been the 100%, because if I got 4 wrong, how can I expect them to do better than that? Now, some of them do, of course, but that means that if you got a 13, 14, 15, 16, or 17, that's 100%. So I end up being the curve for this test. I really like that because it creates a sense of unity. It creates a sense of fellowship, that I'm not trying to hurt them, that this is important. And I explain to them why we do these quarterly tests, okay? Obviously, you need an assessment over, the chunks that you've done. But these tests being so difficult, I like, because it does get them some practice with their tests. So the process by which we do these, I give them their test. I say, take your test. Keep it private. Do it like you would normally do any test. You eliminate answers and find the right answer. And this is a real standard. You've seen springboard tests. They're really, really standard. It's a story, and then you've got questions, okay? So I have the kids do the test first. And then the second time I see them in a day, because I have them broken up into 2 45-minute chunks for English, they will come back, and I'll give them their tests back, and they will go out into the foyer or spread out in the room with a partner. And then they'll go over those test answers with a partner and find miscommonalities. And when they find miscommonalities, they look back into the text and try to determine which one of them is right. As a teacher of reading and writing, it's really cool. This process has been really neat over the last few years. I've been doing it a long time. But what you hear is the conversation that you want to hear. And you could literally assess them while you're listening to them if you wanted to put in a presentation standard or an understanding text standard or whatever it is. You could listen to their conversation and actually check a box if you decided that you wanted to. For me, it's more about helping them understand how tests work. So I've explained to them that tests are just a game. They're built like a game, just like anything else, and there's a pitfall and there's a bridge. There's always one that's designed to sink you, and then the other answer is correct. And so you have to eliminate. These are common strategies, right? They teach these in elementary school. You eliminate the ones that can't be correct, and it usually leaves you with 50%. In the one that I took the other day, I got 7 wrong for English 1. So that made the score a 10 as 100%. And I couldn't believe how difficult it was. So anyway, the kids go through their test and they try to determine which one of the answers that they, aren't matching on, which one is correct. And, their talking is really neat. It just they have all the kinds of conversations you would want them to have in order to explore how the test works. And so doing this a couple of different times throughout the year previous to standardized tests kind of prepares their brain for the way of thinking that that tests require. You have to kind of put everything in a box. So here you have this classroom where everything is ebb and flow. Everything is, creative and self-applied, and the students are very much in every lesson. They get to make all kinds of decisions. And so here, then you take that and you have to frame it into a box for them and explain how the things that we do still boil back to your ability to take a test. By the end of the year, by spring, it really seems to click, and the kids kind of speed up at tests and their scores increase. Their anxiety goes down. These sorts of little practices with a peer. Now this is a test, but they know that it's low stakes, right? It's not gonna sink them. And it's community based. So you get with a buddy and you form trust that way. And, the kids will switch partners throughout the year, a little bit here and a little bit there. And they're gleaning different skills from different kids. And ultimately it get back to that conversation that they're having while they're going over their tests. It's so valuable. I mean, literally just listening to them, I could give them a score for, I don't know, writer's workshop, I guess, because they're talking about writing and they're looking at reading and they're talking about answers. So anyway, if you ever felt the need to have one of those gentle assessments, you could listen to them while they're talking and put in a score. Then what do? They come into the room. That takes maybe 20 minutes for them to go over their tests and be happy with what they've selected. And then I give them the answers. I guess I should say before I release them to their partners, I tell them which ones I got wrong. Because the ones that I got wrong are going to be the most difficult questions with the most severe distractor that's designed to make you get it wrong. So I let them know which ones that is, and then they take an extra long look at those questions and try to make sure that they can get them right when I got them wrong. I don't tell them what I selected in order to get it wrong, but I do let them know which questions I got wrong. So then they come back into the room after they do the thing, and I give them the answers to the test. They grade their own test. So they just replace the pencil that they took the test with a marker. And I just look around the room and make sure that there are no pencils in any hands and that everybody has a marker. And I give them the answers and they score out their test. It's really as simple as that. And they put the number correct, just like I did, over top of 17. These are almost always 17 questions. So I have them put that number over there. That's their preliminary score. They hand in all their tests, and then I can look through and make sure that nobody's trying to pull shenanigans. But when you build this environment of trust, and the kids know that you're on their side, and I don't know if I mentioned this a whole bunch, but grades are not important to me really at all. If a kid has a 98, that kid's super successful. And if a kid has a 92 and everybody else in the class has higher scores than 92, that's all I need to know. The kid doesn't need to have a 62 in order for me to determine that he needs more help than his peers. So I don't really like the idea of failing. I like the idea of growing more. And so I try to look at kids who struggle a little bit as just being on the lower echelon. It's not that they aren't proficient with something, it's just their grades are lower. They're not either as dedicated or as motivated, or maybe sometimes even intelligent, or a combination of those three things. But I don't ever see a reason as a teacher to let those things, destroy a kid's life. We get up in our heads that like school is school, and I hate schooly stuff. Like, and it's terrible because it's so effective too. But I've just never really liked stuff like that. It's not me. It works for other people. But I find the distance that teachers put between themselves and students is one of the biggest drawbacks for student growth. If you're a real person and you treat them like real people, I mean, then it really works. You build this relationship of trust, and then you don't have to worry about stuff like this. Like, I wouldn't have to go over my kids' tests anymore to make sure that they did it with efficacy, that they graded themselves properly. And part of self-grading then, of course, is it's done immediately. They get their feedback instantly. We go over the test answer criteria, so it tells you why A is the best answer or whatever. And sometimes it's still total garbage, and we're like, it's total garbage. And since we did it together, there is the sense of unity. And I hope that you can understand the differences if I didn't do it with them. If I didn't do it with them, then I have no skin in the game. They like the fact that I get. In fact, they're like, "Oh, Mr. Wiles, get a whole bunch wrong," so that the curve is easier for us and stuff. So it creates that unity. Like, I'm in here doing this with you. We're all in this together. We're just trying to grow. And so I'm doing this episode today because my kids are taking their Smarter Balance test. Nope, that's wrong. It's NWEA. Map testing. A lot of states do map testing, and they do that 3 times a year. So you have your initial one in the fall, the one in the winter, and the one in the spring. And traditionally, the one in the fall is struggles a bit because they're coming back into school. They take it literally the first week when they get back in. And then December ends up being kind of the proof in the pudding. So December is, they've gotten used to school. You've taught them a bunch of stuff. They're used to your room. They're used to the style. They're, either committed or not, however that looks for you. And so the December test ends up being really, really important for growth. And if you're using Dungeons and Dragons in your classroom, or like facsimiles where you are kind of on the edge of traditional learning, then your tests are really, really, really important. And you have, as a teacher, you have to be able to stress that to your kids, the significance of, hey, if D&D isn't working to help your test scores, we play this every Friday. So if everybody's scores go backwards, we can't do that anymore. And that's usually enough of a fire for everyone to say, well, we're just gonna try really hard. Making kids relaxed when they take tests is really, really important. When I lived in Houston, we had STAR tests there, of course, in Texas, and they're high stakes tests. You don't graduate if you don't pass them. And you were always in a room with kids that you didn't know. They wouldn't let you test with your own kids because of test efficacy. They don't want to make sure you're not giving anybody answers or clues or hints or whatever. And so you're in a room with kids that you don't have. And I came to find out after years of doing this, I think it was probably my 5th or 6th year, where they found out that there was a point percentage increase for kids who tested in my room with me. And I couldn't take you're not even allowed to look at the STAR test. Okay. They're like super, super crazy about it, but whatever. That's kind of how I learned how significant the data can be from methodology in a teacher's classroom. So this is really an important part of my backstory as a teacher, is these tests were super important to Texas. And I wanted to do cool things with my kids, but they still had to pass these tests. So I think the last year I was there, the district average of the passing STAR test was 52%, because they're difficult, especially for the population. My kids succeeded at 85% passing rate. From 52 to 85 is a significant increase in passing. So back to the testing stuff and things. STAR test. Yeah, I don't remember. So the idea is, the point increase. Sorry about that. The point increase. It has to do with things like this. I would wait for a kid's pencil to squeak and be like, and then the pencil's dull. And I would be sharpening pencils because that's like one of the only things that you can do while you're watching them take the STAR test. And as soon as that kid's pencil got squeaky, I would swap it out in their hand and be like, there you go, bro. And a kid would get tired, they put their head down. I don't know any of these kids. The kid puts their head down, he's tired. I'd go over and really gently just tap him on the shoulder. And you got to be quiet too. Tap him on the shoulder. Dude looks up at you. I'd go, whatever little thing. I would tell them at the beginning, if you need like a 5-minute break just to like break, Just hold up your hand and go 5, and then put your head down, and I will wake you up in 5 minutes. And more. I would have gum. I'd give them mint gum, right? Chewing and the mint is good for the brain. Little things, little candies, little mint candies, like anything that had that effervescence to it. I would always make sure that I had a bunch of that. But it became surprising to me that a relationship was built within one day with these strangers to me, But it was my demeanor to them where I said, today it's all about you. I am just here to help you. You let me know whatever you need, whatever it is. You need a break. You need to go to the bathroom. You need to get out of here. You need to just put your head down. You need a fresh pencil. Whatever it might happen to be. And just that demeanor in that room, that positive energy, relaxed everybody. It made them feel calm and comfortable. And I let them know it's just a test. It's important, but you can take it as many times as you want. I would rather not do that, so I would try as hard as I can and make sure you're dealing with a sense of apathy there in Title I. A lot of kids have never really seen success, and so they don't know really why they have to do this at all. And so then of course those test scores went up even in a room where I didn't have those kids in class. So the reason I'm bringing this up is you have a lot of agency over the success of your kids at many different milestones in their learning throughout the year. And it was cool to see how my relationship could be built in one day in a testing room with kids that would then say hi to me in the hallway every single day. So again, this is about testing, and it's important because if playing D&D in class doesn't make test scores go up, then it's not working. And so the kids approach testing for my room with great enthusiasm. They want to do well, and my kids want to do well anyway, but this actually ups the game a little more. And so that's the significance of testing. I can't really think of anything else other than going through testing strategies like normal teachers would, like show them how to eliminate, show them how to annotate text. A couple of the questions that I got right that were real difficult that the kids got wrong, I explained to them, like, I had to get this through elimination. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that question right had I not eliminated the the ones that I knew were not correct, and then you get down to the 50-50. And so those things, of course, they're really, really common, but they're truly significant. Annotating text, highlighting the primary part of a paragraph can help you look back and see that easily. And these are things that, people wouldn't expect maybe the D&D teacher to be all, guns blazing about, but I am. I really, really am. At any time, opportunity that I get to teach them a testing strategy, I will, because they're going to have to take ACT or SAT. They're going to have to take some of them go into the military and take the military test. The name is eluding me, sorry. But so tests are a part of their life, right? You're going to be a plumber. You're going to take plumbing tests. You're going to be an electrician. You're going to take electrician tests. You're going to be a teacher. You're going to take all kinds of tests, right? So tests all the way out through your life. And so if I can express to them that tests are a game, they're designed just like a game. There's 3 answers that are incorrect. There's one that's the most correct. What a disgusting way to make kids think about things. And when as a teacher, then you get to those 50-50 and you're like, both of these answers are perfectly legitimate and correct. That always makes me really, really mad. And again, another reason why I take the test with the kids, so that I have some element of understanding and I can explain to them, this is why the question, I got it wrong, but like, this is what they're saying about the question, and I guess it makes sense, right? And they're like, oh man, So anyway, I hope you can see how that would create a sense of unity in a class, and trust. Trust is like super duper important. I've mentioned trust before. If you're playing D&D in your classroom and you haven't built trust with your students, it's never going to work. You have to be able to trust them to do what you're asking them to do. They have to be able to trust you to do what you said you're going to do. That's sometimes more difficult than it sounds. So this is Mr. Wells talking about testing. I hope that you get something out of it. I just want to help. Remember, I don't really care about, this. Didn't know that this was ever going to have to be a thing, but since I'm doing it, I'm going to do it. Testing for Dungeons & Dragons teachers couldn't be more important, couldn't be more significant. If you have anything to say regarding this, go ahead and reach out. I do have more pointers and stuff, but I mean, it's just general teacher stuff. Do good with tests. Use your tests as a learning tool, not just as an assessment. I guess that could be something that I could say. Like, your tests, they're just tests. I mean, they're like, teachers make things sound so important, and they're not. And if their kids are not learning, then your test is arbitrary. So just consider like what your tests actually do and what they're really going to show you in the end, and how significant is it really, the point value that they get on those tests. And if they're not learning, if they always score low, there's some considerations that have to be made, and of course you want kids to test better, so you help them. But yeah, so tests. Take the test that you give to your kids, unless you wrote them yourself, which teachers do, of course. But if you didn't write the test yourself, you take the test with your kids. Explain that it's gonna show them all kinds of things about you. This goes back to modeling, and I mentioned modeling quite a bit. But if you're not modeling all the things that you can model for your kids, then they're missing out on a part of the teaching experience that you should be giving them. You got to model for your kids, including taking tests and talking about tests and finding the secret code in tests. And so my kids as gamers, when we talk about tests as a game, it eventually starts to click. I'm like, you have 4 answers to select. Is it? And imagine it like a controller. Do you jump now, or do you use a special power? Do you dash, or do you open your inventory? Whatever it might be. You got 4 buttons to pick. You can get this, no problem. So, testing. We love it. It's great. This is Wizard Wells. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Hope everybody's living the dream. Goodbye.